for our next speaker, Martha Arevalo. She's going to talk about the judicial system and women in Mexico during COVID-19. This is a special case study. So Martha, what can you tell us about the current situation on judicial systems and women in Mexico? The floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Evelyn, for the invitation and the team. And Javier, you did an amazing introduction to what I'm just going to present. Can you please go to the next slide? Next. Well, first of all, I would like to say that for the first time we have Secretary of the Interior, which is in some other countries it's called a Ministry of Home Affairs, a Ministry of Internal Affairs, and for the first time we have a woman as the Ministry, as the Secretary of the Interior here in Mexico, and she's not only a woman, but she's a feminist, and it has helped us achieve more projects towards the agenda. Reference of the movement of gender equality here in Mexico. And I will just mention a few things that also Javier introduced. 2 out of every 3 women in Mexico have suffered at least one act of gender-based violence. And women represent 40% of the workforce in Mexico. And of the 25 countries with the highest rate of feminicides in the world, 14 countries are in Latin America. And we also have a high impunity rate in Mexico. It's close to 90%. So that means that of every 10 crimes committed here in Mexico, 9 crimes are not reported and therefore are not even investigated. And that's really, really bad because we're only working with that 10% of the crimes. And then I'm going to talk about the amnesty law and the context of women in prisons here in Mexico. This amnesty law was a mechanism of transitional justice here in Mexico. And as some of you already know, in 2006, there was an ongoing, or since 2006, there has been an ongoing violence or a drug on wars. And it has just exacerbated the violence towards women and in general. And this mechanism was brought by the president, the Mexican president, but it was approved 2 or 3 weeks ago by the Senate. And it has the intention to set free prisoners for minor crimes such as robbery without violence and health crimes such as drug consumption and possession of drugs and some other crimes committed by indigenous groups, especially those groups who didn't have access to an interpreter. As you already know, we have over than 100 indigenous languages here in Mexico officially. And the conditions in the prisons are also not very good here in Mexico. Of the 300 prisons in operation in Mexico, 106 have more inmates than spaces available for them. So that means that we have an overcrowding problem. And in this condition, it's very hard to keep social distance. We have also a problem of basic needs, a lack of basic needs such as soap or even water in some prisons. And this law was intended for only federal crimes. So in Mexico, 80% of the crimes are in the local level. I mean, in the local jurisdiction. So this law is only focused on this 20% of federal crimes. And before this law was approved, there was a big debate here in Mexico because people thought that we would set free people who had committed murders or kidnappers and so on. And that's far from the truth because it's only a law that aims to address minor crimes. And we have also around 400 children under the age of 6 years old who live with their mothers in prison. And that also makes it a big challenge for us during this COVID-19. We have some challenges and opportunities, such as if we wanted to have a bigger impact of having more people be free from this law, we would have to implement it in the local jurisdiction. And it's a very political issue because not every state within Mexico, we have 32 states, not every state has the willingness to approve these amnesty laws, but we have seen some intention of a few states already doing the effort to implement it. And we can also use some existing mechanisms outside the amnesty law, such as the National Law of Penal Execution, that has some conditions for people to be free if they comply with certain conditions. And also we need to have in mind that it's a very long process for prisoners to be free, because it's them for us to say to the government, hey, I am a candidate and you need to review my criminal record, and then the process starts. So it's not very an immediate solution, but it counts as a big effort from the government. Next slide, please. And as Javier mentioned, we have a national strategy. This national strategy is for the protection of women, children, and adolescents living gender-based violence. And it's an effort that started in 2019 with the leadership of our ministry. And it focused services in 7 areas: primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention, but also follow-up, planning and budget, statistics, and also the analysis of the law. And basically, this national strategy, what aims is to gather all these different institutions in Mexico that work with gender, that have an agenda on gender, and we are discussing the big topics. Because when we review the budget, the federal budget, we realize that most of the money is like it's within a bag, but this bag is it's more like focus on capacity or training for the prevention of violence. And we realize that the main problem is not there. Mexico is spending a lot of money in capacity and training or empowerment activities or classes that sometimes sound even funny when you train women on how to do your nails, for example. We have those kind of working online classes. So we are trying to reorganize the budget in the sense that the women need to know where to go in case of violence. So right now, all the efforts looked like they were just spread out throughout the government. And what this strategy is doing is basically gathering all those strategies and saying, we need to work together, because otherwise we are just spending money and we won't see an effectiveness or an impact on those efforts. And it's also focusing in the tertiary prevention, which is focused on the health sector and the judicial system sector also. And Mexico has also launched in the past weeks a few platforms, a few websites. The one that Javier showed is the one that I'm presenting here, and it shows basically all the more than 12 services for women, children, and adolescents in situations of violence. And basically what we did was to train 911 operators. So when women would call for an emergency, they would know where to send them, because we have so many institutions and so many departments and sectors that even us, like normal citizens, don't know where to go when something happens. So we launched that website, and also the federal government launched a coronavirus website related to violence against women. And you can find like videos, documents, reports, data, and all those kind of things. But of course, it shows a challenge, because in a country with 50 million people living in poverty, it's very hard for them to have access to the internet or even to a computer. So I will just conclude saying that we need to come up with solutions, innovative solutions to address this topic, because currently many institutions that work in the judicial system are closed because of the coronavirus, and we need to find ways to keep operating, to have maybe online trials, online audiences, in order to not have a sense of impunity and keep justice going. And in that sense, we need to address also not only the judicial system, but the education system. There's a gender gap, and the Ebola, SARS, or H1N1 crisis have shown that boys go back to school faster than girls, and there's a high dropout of girls. So we need to address that. Also, the economy. We have a very informal economy, and many women work as domestic workers, meaning like they clean houses. So we need to come up with innovative solutions. In that sense, I have seen that many social organizations are addressing this topic. And just to say that this health crisis, the coronavirus, is not gender neutral. So we need to address that from the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marta. So